Hey everyone, welcome.
Hi.
Hey, hello.
Yay! We have Felix, we have V, we have Ula, we have the whole crew here. The first 3 interviews actually from the No Limit Society. Yep. Such an honor.
The brave ones, right?
All the crazy ones.
The first to go into the fire.
Yeah. Yep. And we've been able to play around with awakening and enlightenment together in our rounds of tennis, and you can find those conversations in the playlist that's linked in the bio below. We highly recommend checking those out. Now, we set up this first AMA together, this Ask Me Anything, and we've already got over the last couple of days some crowdsourced questions, and we'll go ahead and start with the question that is listed below. We have a few more that we'll pull up. And if you guys would like to, throughout, go ahead and submit your questions in the live chat. And then after we get through these first 3, we will pull your questions in and answer them. So, all right, let's go ahead and have you 3 start us off. Whoever feels most excited, in their highest excitement. The question is, for those on audio only, it is there more than one type of awakening? And the follow-up sentence to it says, I no longer fear death and am aware of much, but definitely never experienced Samadhi. And Samadhi, for those that don't know, is a meditative state of consciousness, a very unity, oneness state of consciousness. So is there more than one type of awakening?
So I can take it. I would say there can be different depths of awakening. So basically, the general idea of awakening is, we could say, reality becoming aware of itself. So then, the thing is that the very nature of reality, we could say, is awareness. So its very nature is being aware of itself. So already the whole concept of awakening is a kind of a fraud. But that's the whole point of the play, of the lila, of everything that appears. So then, in this context, there are different degrees of distortion of the one knowing itself. And so awakening is kind of tracing back those distortions back to their source, which is this awareness, this radiance, this knowing, aware of itself. And yeah, so there are different layers. We could talk about different layers of the self or the illusory self. And so basically awakening is a process of more subtle layers of oneself becoming more apparent, more activated, more radiant, more shining.
Ula?
So yeah, I would say. Yeah.
Go ahead, Felix. Do you want to wrap that sentence quick?
Yeah, I would just saying again, like it seems that there are different different degrees, but in the end it's all the same movement. There's one direction, but then you can start at different points and you can end up at different points. To be a summary.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
thank
I add
you.
up something as well?
Yes, please.
Yeah, for me, it's this the whole awakening journey is kind of going from the I am this little person, this Ula being, right, to wow, I'm the whole of existence and prior to the existence, right? And it is because we are such a unique makeups, we are such a unique human beings with such different unique conditioning and levels and of understanding. This undoing of that little Ula self, it has got very different flavor to everyone, right? Which we spoke Atlas and our call as well, which is the awakening. It has got very different flavor to each of one because we are such a unique beings, and we have to undo this our unique expressions and conditionings. And it has got different levels to it. It's almost kind of feel like never-ending journey into deeper and deeper into yourself until you fell out of the black hole, right? So it kind of goes spinning around and around and around and around until you go sucked in and through that little veil, and then you are beyond the reality. You're prior to this material reality, the world, as we call it. And yeah, so I think is there more than one type of awakening? Is the one awakening to the same truth for everyone? However, every single one has got a different flavor to it. Every single one of us. That's my view and understanding on that.
Beautiful. How many ways are there to realize that you are not who you think you are? There are as many ways to realize you are not you as there are yous in the universe. There is only one awakening, but there are currently 7.8 billion ways of being misled into believing you are something else. I will quote Osho here. Who am I? Is the only revolutionary act in the universe. Asking that question and finding out you are not you. You are I.
Maybe we could also address the second part. There is not a question, but feels a bit more personal and that is touching more the core of the question for this questioner.
Yeah, cool.
It seems to me like just the phrasing, like definitely never experience samadhi. It seems to me that there's quite a strong expectation or picture of what it should look like, and then comparing one state with that imagination, and thus imagining oneself to not be there. Well, the whole point of samadhi is realizing that you're it, and you can never not be it.
What a
Even when
tag
it looks.
game.
What a tag game. Yes. Exactly.
And also, I would like to put this, I am aware of much. Who is aware of much? Right? To look at the one that is aware of much. Who is aware of much? Can you look at that one who is looking, who is aware? Right? Who is that?
Exactly. The big misconception about Samadhi is that to visualize it as a kind of fireworks, as a extraordinary, out of the ordinary state, while it is simply the state you are in when you are not there. And it's very ordinary. Again, in the words of Osho, it is extraordinary, which is just more ordinary than all the bullshit you are used to.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We expect some fireworks, like you said, exactly. We expect that this is some incredible, ecstatic experience is going to happen. But actually, it's so beautifully simple, right? Is this, this is what I am without this
The
fireworks.
simplicity.
Yeah, the fireworks and the ecstatic experience, the spiritual, profound experiences, kind of, they are still experiences, right? Within that. I am. So, but the I am itself is just most natural, simple, beautiful thing.
There is a fireworks, actually. It's you. You are the fireworks when you are not there. And you want to see the fireworks while you are the fireworks. That won't happen, baby.
Yeah.
Actually, there is a moment where it happens. It's when you are fully conscious of being that fireworks. It's as if you could see it. And in a way, being it is like a dance. At first, you think that the best way to appreciate a dance is to watch a beautiful dance by a very graceful dancer. But that's only until you realize that there is a more beautiful way to watch a dance. It is to dance it. That is Samadhi. And you are it. Don't look for it. You are it. You're it. This is the beautiful tag game. Be like children.
And then even the looking for it becomes part of the firework, becomes
Of
part
the
of the
dance.
play. Yes.
And proximity to children and being childlike. Being childlike is the most mature way of being if you are adult. Being childlike when you are a child is being in unrealized samadhi. Being childlike when you are an adult is being in realized samadhi. That's the entire idea of this dance, is to go from unrealized to realized, but it's all the same. And in the middle is where is the most difficult part because of the darkness, the perceived darkness. But the perceived darkness, the darkest perceived darkness is when you are actually exploding into the firework you are seeking. Ula is extremely close to childlikeness and surrounded with beautiful children, and she's about to explode. In fact, it's one of those incredible fireworks with multiple explosions.
I'm already exploding, Vinton.
Yes,
Seriously.
that's why multiple explosions. Some of them already having happened, some yet to happen. It's a one of those beautiful, long, rich fireworks in Dubai, where they last forever and they fill the entire sky on multiple kilometers.
Yeah. It really is explosion. Yeah, for what I meant when I said when you're in I am, that the I amness for me doesn't feel like firework exploding, but the expression in form is all for me exploding fireworks, right? So prior to the form is the simple, beautiful stillness and silence that has got no it is prior to fireworks exploding. Yeah, that's the kind of space I'm talking about. And then from that, everything unfolds. It's like the firework just suddenly jumps out and all of the creation happens. And it is super ecstatic and firework like. I totally agree. And being a child like, it's like being this person, like you were saying, Felix, yesterday, is being like careless, right? Carefree, sorry. Carefree. Being this.
Huge difference.
Just go, yeah, huge difference, totally. Being this, just go out and play without having concern, how do I look like, how do I sound like, am I good boy, am I bad girl, all of this nonsense that we have in our minds sometimes. Just being self-conscious and self-aware of, how am I acting, how am I presenting myself. Children don't have that, right? They just go out being themselves, fully themselves, expressing their aliveness, expressing their nature, right? This beauty of freedom, and that's the childlike nature, which I think we all look at children as like, oh my god, being a child again, right? I'd love to feel like this again. But hey, we all have it available for us, like at any time. If you want to reach that, if you want to embody that, is present in our adult life. That stay, that playfulness, that freedom.
And anybody who knows what he's doing when preparing a fireworks will not schedule the firing up in the middle of the day. You need emptiness and darkness in the sky to fully appreciate the beauty and the expansion and the light and the colors of the fireworks. And this is the purpose of what you call the dark night of the soul. It is the setting up of the background of the substratum for the magnificence of your flowering into realized nothingness.
Yeah, to realize everything comes out of nothing, right? Everything comes
And
from
goes back.
nothing.
And all the while is nothing. That's the most funny part. Is it feels to me like the exploding point of the firework is the crystallized identity, this which feels like me coming in contact with the true I, that then burst it open, and there is the light, and there is the show.
The true I being the third eye that people talk about, but they visualize it as another another retina, while it's actually another entire complex of skin, eardrum, retina, olfactive sense, and dopamine sense, and all of it. Yes, it's the third eye spelled I, not spelled in any other way, and especially not E-Y-E. Why? There's a clue there. There's a clue why there is a Y in the middle of I. That's a clue. Out loud?
That's a good one. Why is there a Y in the middle of I? There were many great ones by you guys there. I really appreciated those answers. So much beautiful depth. So briefly, would like to take the audience on a journey in understanding the general navigable roadmap of awakening. Just reflect on all coming from the same source, and you reflect on that process, and then you see that in this process of emerging from the same source, that the first most salient attribute is the very fact of awareness. Just sort of sit as your eyeballs. Your eyeballs are the size of ping pong balls. And so if you just kind of sit and reflect on as your ping pong balls looking and just become really aware of that process. And then so we went from source to becoming really aware of our awareness. And then we look at, hey, look, it's a pen. It's a water cup. Yay, pens and water cups, right? So most of society right now is looking at pens and water cups, right? So they're looking at objects. And so now awakening is the process of seeing, okay, source, awareness, objects. And so you just move away from objects to becoming hyper aware of awareness. And it's both gradual and sudden. So in a sense, this what's been described as these pops. So you pop from looking at objects to pop to being aware of that which looks at the object. So the actual awareness itself. And then you become aware that, oh, awareness is source. The source of all reality is my nature. I am the source that makes awareness and that makes realities in the divine play. And so you could say that the more than one type of awakening is popping yourself from the object to becoming aware of awareness, and then becoming aware that awareness is in fact impersonal, it's shared, and that's what's known as this one God self, the all-inclusive awareness, the great I am, that is eternally witnessing the infinite creation. And then there's another pop to the actual source, the very nothingness that's been described, that we arise from and go back to. And so that would be the, quote, navigable roadmap. And then the state of Samadhi is just resting in the awakened state of that recognition. And so that's how I would respond to that question. Do you guys have any thoughts on what I just said, or should we move on to the next question?
I just want to briefly say that I saw the moment of someone awakening beautifully, and the way he described it, he was like, oh, I just realized that I, Ula and this matter don't exist. There's only seeing left, right? So rather than focusing on I, Ula, you just become that see. You just keep focusing, pay attention on the seeing, the fact that there is the operation of seeing, right? And then you become that seeing, so you become the eye of God, right? You see as God sees, and everything then becomes a kind of, experiential wonder of like watching a movie or something that is fascinating. So yeah, I love that. So it's just seeing left, and then just notice and pay attention to that seeing, just that seeing, which is others call awareness.
Beautiful. So good to go to the next question, you guys?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's hide our question about, is there more than one type of awakening? Excellent question. And let's bring up our next question, which is, are there different types of intuition?
Oh, that would be if every single one of us says what is intuition for them, for you, then we will see if there are different types, right?
So, do you want to go ahead, Lee?
Felix?
Okay. So, so let's take this picture of we have a sphere of awareness. There is some aspect of reality that we are aware of, and the rest of it is also us, but is veiled for now. So from this standpoint, it's like intuition then is the penetration of our bubble of awareness by some kind of knowledge, of knowing, of some kind of nudge of intelligence, of love, of wisdom that is guiding our current sphere of consciousness into more realization and more actualization, more expression of that purity from which this impulse is coming. So it's like this process of the unconscious becoming conscious. And so then I would say it can express in many different ways, because then we have like this whole mental body that can be activated in many different ways, with the different senses and with subtle perception and feelings that can all be used as little cues to guide us on the right track. And maybe one last thing that I could add to that is that these subtle cues can come also from different layers. More or less close to the source, more or less pure and vibrant and intense. So yeah, I think that's a good start.
Thank you. Yeah, I like someone called this kind of GPS, right? I sometimes call it satnav. It is our inner guidance. This is, I think, for intuition for me is the way the higher self speaks to me, through me, and then what it wants to express into this world, right? I like that the universe is universe, so it's one big orchestra, one big song. However, we all different tunes, right? So we all each receive like a different instrument. We all receive unique tone, unique song that sings through our heart, and we receive through that tune, through that song, through that intuition, as some call it. We receive the knowing, the information of it's the knowing is that's what we're receiving from the higher self of this is where I need to go now, this is what I need to do now, this is what rings true for me right now in this moment, right? This is where my next step, this is what I need to say. So is this knowing inside of ourselves that guides us to navigate through this thing called life, right? And to express in these very unique ways. So each of one, it comes from the same space again. It is coming from the same universal knowingness, right? However, it speaks uniquely to us with the unique song, which wants to be sung through us. So I think that's how intuition how that sounds, how that is for me. So that's why being true to yourself, being authentic and true and in tune with your intuition is so powerful, because then you are one with that. Yeah, you could say your life purpose, but it's just the way life unfolding. I would say your own unique of what you came to express here.
Yeah, absolutely. I explained it best through my beloved Osho, who alerted his followers and humanity on the different components and expression of intelligence. Intelligence beginning within. It all comes from inside, inwards, and it cannot be otherwise. There are different densities of intelligence. Instinct is essentially your karma. It's your hardwired, practical, material, defensive and negative intelligence. Intellect is your mind, is your language, is your ability to define who you are not and to understand and strategize and construct strategies to maintain your state of separation from all that is. It's artificial and tiring, but it's also useful and beautiful and necessary for the choreography of this dance of life. And finally comes intuition, the education that your higher selves provide to your lower selves, the tuition inside. That intuition does not use language nor gestures, even though it will refer to your data bank, your memory data bank of emotions, experiences, language, to try and connect that data bank of memory and your experience to a higher truth that your higher self is constantly showering on you. And indeed, your focus, or rather defocus, your defocus on the lower forms of intelligence will allow you to benefit from the access to the higher density of intelligence from your higher self. It is a way of widening the spectrum of your consciousness to your higher self. And each and every one of you, 7.8 billion ways to express the same feeling and proximity to truth.
Beautiful. I think it's also important to say that it speaks in so many different languages and ways, right? Because you say it doesn't speak the words and language and things. I actually find that it speaks so many ways. Like it can come through the dream, which you know kind of the meaning of it, or you can come from the visions. Or I even sometimes hear the voice in my head that tells me something, right? Tells me like this is going to happen, kind of gives me that warning. And also, even looking at the bird, sometimes it speaks to you, or hearing the song with certain words that just exactly what you needed to hear at the time. It speaks so many different ways. Like it's almost like the whole existence speaks to you, right? And
Yeah,
only you
perfectly
can
right.
have to tune in to be able to receive that information. So again, the more awareness, the more you reside in that space of awareness, and you be able to see more and more subtle things and messages and informations, and you're able to tune in more to hear
Yes,
that song.
if you are very careful, it will remind you of what you didn't know that you knew. And if you watch carefully, you will see that these many languages are all known to you, because in reality, you cannot perceive from the small self point of view anything that has not been stored consciously or unconsciously in your memory. However, as you expand and as you detach from your smaller self, you are granted and you gain access to a wider and vast space
Intelligence.
of universal memory, and finally to nothingness.
Yeah, is this again? Is this coming out of this little mind of things that knows, right? Forgetting that, and actually stepping into the space. I know nothing, and then you're very receptive. You're really receptive. You become like a student. So you're receiving.
Yes.
You're on the
It,
receiving space, but you also is from that vessel, mind, body, spirit complex, right? Because
it's
you
the
are always ever creating that for yourself.
you brought up one of the most important points that was not mentioned: the absolute necessity of extreme courage and lucidity to recognize that you know not, that you know nothing, that whatever you think you know is flawed, that in reality, in truth, you know nothing. That is the starting point. It's the prerequisite, it's the permission slip for real knowing to reveal itself to the you who is not there anymore. You 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 need to remove yourself, to to turn yourself inside out, to realize that your idea of you is not there, and that you who you think knows anything does not know anything, because it is not. But that is a very difficult thing to understand with the mind, but it is obvious when you open yourself to intuition. And it is
Yeah.
extremely simple. Any expression of it which will sound so sophisticated and complex and inaccessible, while the reality of it is extremely simple. It's your natural built-in ability to be not the you that you think you are, to be, just to be what you really are, which is all that is.
Yeah, because you're either a little person, I'm the Ula knowing this and that, or I am the vessel for the intelligence to work through me and speak to me and through me, right? So I'm either a Ula who knows, or I am the whole intelligence speaking through me. Like being the vessel for that intelligence is just the most beautiful experience we can have as a human beings, right? Alive and having a life and living a life. I find that allowing this flow through me is just like mind blowing. It's just it's incomparable to being a little human being, you know, this little mind and completely fixated and stuck somewhere. I think it was Sadhguru that said this beautifully. It was really powerful for me. It said, optimists believe positively, pessimists believe negatively. They're both afraid to admit that they don't know. Right?
Yes.
And I find it's just, I love it. It's just one of my favorite things. It's like, yeah, just doesn't matter what you believe. It's belief, right? It is. And then in drop that, you don't know, you become the student and the magic happens.
The first admission, which is the prerequisite, is to say out loud, without restriction, without any holding back that it might not be the actual truth, that you know nothing. Then that makes it possible to realize that the you who knows nothing is not you. The real you knows everything, but the you think you are knows nothing, that's for sure. But if you begin by the wrong end, by saying the real me knows everything, the problem is because you have not already a clear understanding of who is that real me that you believe you are, it's extremely counterproductive. That is why I revealed to Bentino directly, not through this bearded person, that Advaita is a counterproductive truth, despite being the absolute truth. This absolute truth revealed prematurely to immature consciousness is counterproductive because they would begin by saying, I am all that is, I therefore know everything, and which is precluding them from the necessary admission that the false I that they believe they are knows anything.
Yes, and I would add to that that it's also a process that happens in different cycles, ever expanding cycles of. Well, let's start with this humbling recognition that I know nothing. Then from that there is there's this humility, this opening to a greater intelligence that is allowed to flow through this vessel. And then from this, there is this expression, and then there is this excitement and this joy and this free flow. And then that will also get tainted by the remnants of the false identity that are still clinging to this expression, to the results, and that will distort this flow. And then it will come again to a point of frustration, of realizing that actually I'm not fully it, I'm not fully me. And so there comes again a point of, I don't know.
Yes,
And
the
then,
root of all misunderstanding is the usage, the unowned, the unmastered usage of the word I is the culprit, is not the culprit, obviously, it is the catalyst.
the weapon of the crime.
Yeah, the catalyst for misunderstanding the life dance that you are, which you tend to believe is happening around you as a separate being rather than within you. But before you jump into that truth, it's very important to, number one, accept that the I that you still think you are now knows nothing. Then the next stage is to stop totally using the word I in recognition that you keep attributing the wrong things and the wrong identity to that I. And then when and as and when the reality of your being becomes clear and real and anchored in your being and in its expression, I can now speak through you, and that word can be used again. That single letter word can be used again.
So profound. Love it. Woo. Great answers, you guys. Such a good question, too. Ooh.
Any new question?
Yeah, I would love to say that for simplifying this as well, like has been mentioned by many of the most, quote, successful geniuses in the physical, they frequently have stories of where they defocus from the physical focus in a more relaxing, and they go on walks into nature. And what happens is that exact difficult problem that they were trying to figure out, just lightning bolts the creative solution. Or it comes to them in the dream, or it comes to them in all of these different, more relaxed scenarios. The very defocusing from the physical enables the more relaxed guidance from that higher intelligence to streamline itself through.
Yes,
So,
because it must be understood that the entire ego construction is an exercise in focus. It is the entire thing. The entire thing is the reduction of consciousness into a finite, small self-concept. So if you want to access the truth that is there within you in the wider being that you are, you have to stop focusing on maintaining that ego, to relax it so that it widens and widens until it widens enough to include the answer to what you are seeking. The problem usually is that when you get that answer, suddenly you recontract, because that's all you were after. You were after an answer, and then you recontract into your ego, and you just carry along that answer. But just keep relaxed, and that answer will still be there, and many others, as you widen your consciousness. But please go ahead.
yeah, that's the entire Leela, is the very explorative process of taking this identity of nothingness to everythingness and undergoing this spectrum of identities where you have this very small, contracted identity which doesn't get much intuition. Small, finite, contracted, egoic identity obsessed with its conditioning, trying to find peace and happiness in Maya, seeking it in experiences and substances and relationships, is inevitably going to get less intuition. It's going to get more suffering, get hit with the sledgehammer until it, like in the parable of the prodigal son, turns inward to investigate the very nature of awareness itself and the very nature of even its source. And in doing so, that ego construct relaxes it, then expands to include these answers that we just talked about. And then intuition becomes much more, I see it here, I see it there. It becomes like an augmentation in perception that was always there, but you were blinded because your perception was focused on trying to find peace and happiness in Maya, and you weren't seeing the signposts, which you now see more as you awaken. Cool. So beautiful. We have another question that was lined up beforehand, and then we'll see if we have a good one from the audience as well. So this
why
question,
don't you shoot 2-3 questions so that we can cover more for the satisfaction of the people who did post questions?
let's address this question that came the last couple of days into the flow. It's a really good question. And then if there is another audience question before we wrap, we'll take it. So for those tuning in that want to drop a question, go ahead and drop it in the live chat and we'll address it. But right now, there is not a question besides this one to address. So let's go ahead and address this one. So this kind of plays on the first question. So the question is, can you address what remains the same after awakening versus what changes after awakening? As people say, everything is the same, yet totally different. And this follows that very fun Zen aphorism: before enlightenment, shop would carry water; after enlightenment, shop would carry water. Or in the more modern day, it's before awakening, do laundry; after awakening, do laundry. So this is a great question. Let's see how our three take it.
I'm
Ula?
so excited. Can I start?
Yes, please.
I was actually wanted to talk about it before this question came out. I was thinking, like, I wonder if the synchronicity is going to work beautifully for me now. And yes, I got it right. Do you know what, guys? This is the relaxing the ego for me, right? To realize, like, for me, I see God as this playful child, right? That just absolutely loves playing. That's why he plays live, right? He just wants to play. And created all the games and created all the costumes that it can, dress itself up and play all these different roles and play all of these different games of, going to work or having families or going traveling or having enemies and doing the war, like even going to war and having a fight. And it's just, God just loves playing in all this. And when you observe child, it's just so incredible, because that's just like God is like child, like so playful. So let's say we look at child, and child plays with his mate and starts playing some kind of, I don't know, let's play armies or something, and they start, fighting and shooting and blah blah blah, and then they play so well that they eventually forget themselves, and they so fully engage in the game. They think I'm the army guy, right? I'm the army guy and I'm playing with the other army guy, and they get lost in that game completely. So they're starting fighting and being really serious about it when they just have a full-on argument and tantrums to follow up, right? After that. So I see this is exactly what has been happening with the play as we see here in the world. Is like the God is playing so intensely, so getting so engaged that eventually gets lost in the game and forgets what it is, who it is that he first place created the game. So what happens after awakening? You realize you're back into this child place. This is all just a game, just a play, right? So you're still fully engaged with the games, and you're more aware, more conscious. So you're more conscious of which game you want to play and you want to engage in, and which you don't. So you make different choices, right, for yourself on where you go and where you're going to engage. And you also don't. You're in the world, but you're not off the world. So this attachment, this addiction to the game, to the emotional traumas and dramas the game produces, it releases, it loosens the grip on you. Therefore, you are able to play without that attachment, play without the drama, play without the suffering. You really realize it for what it is, and you realize your place in it. So then you are back in the costume, being Ula, right? And having fun with it. You're literally having fun with it. And always able to go back to the place of I am all of this, and I am prior of any reality, word, matter. So I think that's for me. That's the beauty of being, doing the laundry still. So still taking part in playing, however, joyfully, just having fun with it rather than suffer with it and struggle with it. That's my intake and understanding.
Thanks for that.
Nothing much to add to that. Nothing at all to add to that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you always know that you only ever play with yourself, like you guys, like you just another me, right? Like we are all.
Well, please
the
don't
same.
reveal too much of our intimacy.
Come on. There's no more shyness anymore, right? Nothing to hide anymore.
Well, but it's also part of the play to hide, to disguise ourselves, and to play the game of forgetting, and to play the game of being really serious about that play, and to play the game of being me.
And just like there was nothing to add and nothing to hide, there is still something to subtract. Apart from the ego and the sense of the wrong sense, the wrong concept of self, many spiritual people make a mistake trying to prematurely rid their children of ego, or try and prevent or block the development of an ego by their children.
V, you're getting a lot of static in your mic. Can you just, thank you.
Yeah, there's a bit of wind. So, what is to subtract? Some people devoted to spiritual search tend to want to suppress the development of ego in their children. And this is not necessarily helpful. In fact, it is counterproductive, because there is a lack of understanding of the usefulness of the development of a pretty strong ego in the first phase of life, which will create more friction with reality, which will create a darker night of the soul, which will be the perfect scene for a more bright and contrasting revelation at the right time, in good time.
Yeah, we all should be entitled to play, right? To forget and to remember, and to forget to remember.
Yes.
Because if you don't forget, then this moment of remembering, which is so profound, wouldn't be given.
Exactly.
Right? It's like
Exactly.
the contrast that we experience brings the beauty of the remembering, right? The darkness,
Exactly.
when you go through darkness of the soul, suddenly fall into joy. And like, you would never appreciate the joy as much if you didn't have the dark night of the soul, right? So it is like, I mean, yeah, that's the whole point.
Exactly. It's like trying to open a flower prematurely, it will damage it. Or trying, while the kid is playing cowboy and Indians or whatever, you are saying, well, don't forget you are not a cowboy. Don't forget you are not an Indian. Come on, let them play first.
Let me be a cowboy. Let me be an Indian. Yeah.
Exactly. And then if they start crying that he killed me, he's a nasty cowboy, and now I'm dead, and I don't want to be dead. Okay, then you can tell him, okay, remember you're not an Indian, but don't remind him he's not an Indian or cowboy while he's having fun.
Yeah. Yes, guys, listen, I had only 1 hour, so I have to check out because my boy is playing football now and in the last quarter and I have to feed it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a joy
Love
to
being
have
with,
you.
Thank you, Ula.
yeah, love being with you. I'll see
We
you
love
soon,
you.
yeah?
Love you.
Thank you.
Love you, bye.
Enjoy them.
That was so nice that she joined. Yay. Oh, that last part was getting really good. It's like even after you quote pierce the veilless veil, the gateless gate, and unite with your true nature, even sharing the awakening ruins the game. Well, it's part of the game for catalyzing, because you were
Yeah,
catalyzed by
and
others that were.
don't forget, you are not forcing your channel or your YouTube videos on anybody. So it's their intuition guiding them to watch the right video at the right time. However, when you are in your embodied life, Felix, V, and Atlas, never forget that while you can be totally boundless and without restraint when talking in a channel which is only accessible by free will, when interacting with people in the flesh or directly, there's this necessity to constantly check if the permission slip is there, if it's the right time, the right maturity. And the only way for you to know is to be asked or to receive a very clear permission slip there. That's essential.
Cool.
And these things get refined anyway. Like
Yeah.
we bump our heads against the walls, and then we learn. So
Yeah,
it's part
like
of the
saying-
process also to make mistake and be silly and want to
Yeah.
save the world and all of this.
And indeed, don't bang your head against the wall. Don't bang your head against the wall. Don't bang, don't bang your head against the wall. Stop
Well-
banging your head against the wall.
If you're
This is
having
not
fun with
meant to
it,
you guys. Yeah. Usually, the banging of the head against the wall is when it's already way past the fun is gone already. Yeah.
fair enough. Well, it's like when you fall. The problem is not falling; it's when you hit the ground.
Yes, it's true. No, the best way is to remove the ground if somebody falls. If you can do that, you don't need a permission slip. But that's the only thing.
So, for what remains the same versus what changes, it's almost as though you, like we talked about with Frank Yang on the show, that you only know this first level, and we gave this example also earlier, with you only know the level of objects. And so you don't actually know truly from a place of subtle awareness the salient of perception itself. You haven't recognized the true salience of being a seer, of knowing yourself as God, of piercing that veilless veil to that level. And so in a sense, you're in this state and you don't know, you haven't pierced that veil to get back with that one layer. And so what happens is you pierce back a layer, pop back that layer, you become more aware that there's another part to this game that you weren't aware of. Then you recognize that even that is shared and eternal. And then you pop even to the very source of awareness and of realities. And so now basically what happens is you can navigate the very nothingness to the very infinitude, from the very impersonal awareness perspective to the very engaging with an object or experience. And you can do it from a more frictionless perspective where you're no longer being...
Hello. Sorry for interrupting you. An apology presented to you for interrupting you, because with all due respect, what you are saying can only make sense to already quite advancedly awakened souls. It cannot make any sense to people who have not had already a couple of degrees of awakening, and many of the people who have a misconception about awakening will be confused and despaired by those descriptions, because they are too far from their experience.
Okay, this is a fair point.
One very important realization is that it's quite rare, actually, that the awakening happens in a single Big Bang. For most expressions, incarnated expressions of I, the awakening will be a series of bangs and pops, like you call them, each of them increasing to a certain degree the density of being and their vastness of consciousness. So let's be very careful not to, let's be very careful.
Yes.
Very careful not to sustain the misconception that enlightenment or awakening happens in one Big Bang. It's very rare when it does. It's mostly in a series of successive realizations that each of them incrementally increase the
very important point. So the reason why I was making that description, and the reason why you made that great point, which is that it's very relevant to an advanced level of understanding of the navigable roadmap, which is a great point. Then the next place that I'm going with this point, and that was a great reflection along the trajectory, but the next place that I'm going with this point is that what happens is, rather than living, because we're addressing the question, rather than living pre-awakening, what you're doing is you're living in a place where you're trying to, as a physical finite creature, you're trying to be happy and peaceful, but you're trying to get that from experiences, substances, relationships, the illusion, the intoxication. And so what's happening is you're seeking something transient in order for you to get a hit of dopamine feel-goodness, which then disappears, and then you wonder, okay, well, what's next? I need something else to fill the void of feel-goodness. And so in a very most layman term, the very outward-focused, non-awakened state is trying to recommune with the very nature of what's been described as Satchitananda over millions of years, which is the nature that your awareness itself, existence, consciousness, bliss, is peace. It is happiness. And so when you become fully aware of that, you basically relax into the peace and joy that was already present. Sri Aurobindo and the Mother Mir Alfasa call it the rock that was covering the well of honey. And that in that process, you no longer, so post this first pop in awakening, in a sense, it's a very profound shift. It's a very, very, very important, cool, profound shift, because you no longer feel, it used to be for many people, as they described their awakening, that they were constantly trying to find or extract peace and happiness. And instead, now what happens is that they bring peace and happiness. So at least there's that clarification as something that is very cool. in the process?
I'm going to say goodbye. I don't really need to go, but I feel like going right now, if you don't mind.
Okay. V, thanks for
Yeah.
joining us. Yeah, that was so nice. We're basically wrapped as well, so thank you. Good to
Yeah,
see
thanks
you.
for joining us. It's been a great pleasure.
Awesome.
Cool.
All
So,
right. Yeah, go ahead. Hit the
yeah,
ball.
I just wanted to add another perspective to this, because I feel that what V was expressing about the importance of the gradual nature of awakening. I think it's important to also bring another picture to explain this point more. So yeah, one thing that we could say is that the true the true me is pure awareness. So it's this pure space of being, it's pure potential that then shapes itself into many different forms, everything that appears. And so one one particular categories of this shape is the sense of a me. So it's like a crystallized shape, a form, a structure that then rigidifies itself. It's like this pure consciousness, which is very fluid, very free, that can shapes itself in all kind of ways. Then it becomes very rigid, very stable, and very stuck also in some ways. And so then the process of awakening is then realizing that this crystallized sense of me is not the true me, and then this allows some dissolution to take place. And this is very much a process that takes some time, at least in most cases. And so then what happens along the way is that the more dissolution happens, the more um, it allows for more movement. So where the flow of energy used to get stuck because there was like this rigidity, then with more dissolution, more opening, more space being open in that structure, then there is a greater flow and a greater like a smoother experiencing of everything. Then like the consciousness still takes many shapes, but then there's less edginess, there's less contraction, there's less rigidity, there's less resistance to the flow of things. There's more just like a natural, harmonious, gracious flow. And yeah, each step along the way of the deconstruction of this structure really makes a true difference in its own unique, particular aspects of the life.
Awakening / dissolving allows for more frictionless, harmonious movement. Yeah, there's a navigability that is only accessible to awakening. You can't navigate beyond your ego conditioning when you're stuck there. You can't navigate into the subtle formless awareness. You can't tap into that layer that's already there, but that you can't tap into because you haven't penetrated it, because your earnestness isn't high enough on truth, on desiring to know, to be free, to know your true, eternal, infinite nothingness nature. And so And then once you do pop in there and you pop back, you go through those bits of awakening, again, you no longer seek peace and happiness in Maya. You now bring peace and happiness everywhere. And you can navigate anywhere along that spectrum frictionlessly, harmoniously. It's, yeah, that's probably the main thing, is the frictionless, harmonious navigability of all states of being and experience. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
But laundry stays the same.
Yeah.
And what you
And
do is you do it with awakened love and care and compassion, rather than, oh, I have to do the dishes right now. You know, so it's called Tantra for a reason. You weave your awakened realizations into everything that you do, or Sahaja Samadhi. There's many ways to say the weaving of the profound realizations. Yeah.
And I really like what Bentinho said in one of the mentorship call. Well, he was talking about different aspects, but one thing he was saying is that like some people imagine that the point of life is the enjoyment of the chocolate, of the
I thought you were
snacks,
going to say that, the champagne. Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes.
thought you were going to say that. Yeah.
And then he was saying that he enjoys chocolate and he sometimes enjoys sex, and he was saying that he pops champagne for basically any reason he can find, but for him it's an act of devotion and of giving. So that will be also an important shift of perspective.
Yeah.
Like before awakening, it's more like I need to do this in order to get something or to avoid something.
Perfect.
Whereas after awakening, it's more like I'm just giving. I'm offering. Every act is an offering, a testimony.
Perfect. It becomes a giving.
Yeah.
Every act is giving to God, to the creation, to the play, rather than trying to extract from it by popping this or having sex or whatever. I'm going to get happiness. Yeah, that's such a huge, great way to put it. Okay, I think that addresses a good amount of the points.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you become, in a sense, much more. You got to remember, the most simple one is the pause, right? When you awaken, you create a greater pause, so you're not as reactive to the sensations and stimuli, but you use the breath enough to go, and you become more of an observer or a witness of what's happening. And by creating that pause and not being reactive, what happens is the anger typically dissolves in the other person or in the situation or whatever is happening and unfolding. And so you basically carry this incredible ability that was latent in you. Yeah. The pause. All right, let's address one of the audience questions that was really good that I wanted to bring up.
Cool.
So let's bring it up now. All right, Kev's question. How do I wake people up I love from the reality of which they are still living?
Great fucking question. How do I wake people up? So so one thing to see is that you cannot really force it upon people. All you can really do is be the example and invite them, seduce them, woo them in, like give them the taste for it, give them. But yeah, I feel it's important to look at where we're coming from with this kind of question, because it can often be that we perceive some lack somewhere that we're trying to compensate for. So maybe we believe that there's a problem in the way other people are experiencing their lives, and that we should solve it. Or maybe we feel that we cannot really share with other on the level that we would like to share and to meet, and or maybe we just feel like they're fucking annoying with their bullshit, and we would like to live in more harmonious and peaceful circumstances. And so all of these are great great ways to reveal where we are still identified with our not self, with our false identity. And these points are actually where we still get stuck, and so where we cannot really embody the example that they would need us to be in order to be more invited in. So it's like the very points of contraction, of trying to help others or to change others, are very often the points that we need to unlock in ourselves in order to become the space that they actually need for their transformation.
Perfect.
So yeah, it's about being the change you want to see in the world.
Yep. Perfect.
And also great value in just the love. Just show love to the people you love. And that will have beautiful impacts. It's just there's nothing like love, you know. It's both it's both very beautiful for you to be experiencing it, and again, it's a gift. It's what you're giving to the circumstances. So by offering that love, it's like watering your garden, and you cannot force the plant to grow, but you can provide some water and some nice environment
Perfect.
for it to have more chances to blossom.
Yeah, Felix definitely brought up the core themes. So to address this question properly, it's really nice to know exactly where the person is coming from, because I remember I'm right now about to give something which, thinking about myself a year ago, I don't know if I would have been able to actually receive this. And I'm curious maybe if this person can actually receive this whole idea of purifying where you're coming from, as we shared a moment ago. Because the idea of okay, why do I want to enlighten my mom or my friend? Or why do I want to liberate people from their chainless chains in the matrix to higher states of consciousness? And so that reflective process is really mission critical, but I don't know if it can actually land in the heart right now, given where people are at, experiencing elevated states and trying to go martyrdom, overzealous action in, I will liberate my family, I will liberate my friends, I will awaken and shatter these chainless chains. And so I would say that if I was giving advice that was a step below purify where you're coming from, which is the absolute highest step, I would say the step below that might be something like your very intention for wanting to help deliver awakening is a sign that you are here to be in service to other people. And that's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And the process of you doing that is totally not going to happen overnight. And so slow down, as has been said in this episode several times by our incredible guests. Learn how to receive from the universal music. And in doing so, what's going to happen is you will become, rather than overzealously trying to deliver awakening, you'll notice that as you receive more and just abide in these more awakened states that you're experiencing, naturally what's going to happen is you're going to get a message from someone. And it's going to be like, hey, it's going to be a friend of yours. And it's going to be, hey, I noticed that you're experiencing a lot of peace and happiness. Your posts, your videos, your content, it's been great. You know, seeing you at that event last week, you looked really happy. Do you mind me calling you for 30 minutes just to talk? So now what you see is, rather than you bringing the awakening to people, what's happening is people are coming to you. So you'll notice the sensitivity, the very subtlety will change because you recognize that at a deeper level. So I would say, as Felix said, be the change you wish to see. So take a step back from that sort of overzealous deliverance of awakening towards the inner work. And as you refine and abide that, naturally, you'll find more and more scenarios where you'll deliver anywhere from a small little watering, as Felix mentioned in the analogy of the seed, to a little bit of sunlight as you pass by, that type of a thing.
Yeah, I would also like to build on what you said about like just the beauty of the desire to be of service to others. It's a very beautiful setup from the one existence to experience the many different, very rich interactions that can take place between different beings. And so I would say also to trust that impulse and to go with it, and knowing that following this trail of excitement will purify it on the way. Like you will learn by trying and by giving your best, and by also realizing what we were saying about the intuition that you don't know how to wake people up. There is the desire, but then you're coming to a point where it feels like you don't know, and so that opens you up for a pause and to really become more humble and to let go of more of your biases and assumptions, which will open you up to to more intelligence, as we were saying before, and that will allow you to be used in a more skillful way. And then again and again, and with practice and devotion and dedication and sincerity, these things just unfold and become more and more beautiful.
Excellent. Let's wrap. This was yours from the beginning. Awakening is reality, becoming aware of itself. And then this one was Ula's. I am a little person to I am the whole of existence. This is when we were talking about awakening to the very absolute, to the nothingness. Realize you are even prior to this creation. You are the very unmanifested. You are the source of infinite possibilities. This was our lovely Osho by V. Who am I? Or also known as What is I by Ramana Maharshi, is the only revolutionary act in the universe. Self-inquiry, Atma Vichara. This was a good one by V. The root of all misunderstanding is the use of the unmastered I. That's such a good one. And this was also you. Awakening, dissolving, allows for more frictionless, harmonious movement, swift navigation, Jedi-like, chameleon, Joseph in the coat of many colors. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Really, really good stuff. Kev came back in. Awesome, guys. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you so much. We love you. We're super grateful for you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. And thanks for the little recapitulation of our journey together today.
Yeah.
Really lovely. Really good.
Yeah. It's my honor and pleasure. This is what I've, become skilled at. And so it's a lot of fun to be able to put it to service with Awakening, Enlightenment, and AMA as like this theme, and to have such other awakened representatives as the guests in this panel, to be able to hit these really good tennis balls to answering these questions is just like, yes, this is exactly what the divine unfolding had in store. And I'm just so blessed and grateful.
Yeah. So good. So good.
So good. Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're super grateful. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below on the AMA. Let us know what you're thinking about the answers that came through. And also, if you would like to, you can go ahead and drop new questions into the comments as well. Just write new question and then put your question. And then what we'll do is we'll crowdsource those questions into the next AMA. And like the video if it brought you value, helps the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and share the Awakening AMA with others that you think it would bring value to. So that's all. And you can also find the No Limit Society link in the bio below as well. If it resonates with your highest excitement, it's an incredible Navy SEALs of spirituality. So that is all. Infinite love and adoration. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, Felix, you and I will stay in the room. I'll end the broadcast here.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Cara.
Hey.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.